Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you attending here this evening. Now, the Kids for Harmony program is just, it's an absolute heartwarming thing to watch those children. When you think about it, those youngsters are committing 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, and sometimes more than that as well. And it has just been a real enriching experience. I think most of us in this room would probably agree. If you had to think of one thing that enriches our lives more than anything else, you'd say it's music. And I think that would probably be a universal agreement. But for these youngsters that are doing this and being exposed to, such a timeless, classical music, it's just been wonderful. And they are learning classical music in a very fun setting. It is helping them to focus, to have discipline. And these are kids who might not otherwise be able to be engaged in this kind of a program. So it's wonderful to see how that they've trained their minds. They have grown and become so much more confident. A while back, we were recognized for our reading program here in the city of Pittsfield at the museum. And we had people from Washington, D.C., a lot of suits showed up here to give us a plaque. And I said, we need entertainment for this crowd. And we invited some of the kids there. And they hadn't been at it all that long. But we had about a half a dozen kids there. And it was just amazing to see the confidence that they had, the poise that they had. Just in a relatively short period of time, the effect that this program has had on them. And last summer, we had them perform at Spice, Spice Restaurant in downtown Pittsfield, which for them would be a very foreign venue. But it was wonderful to see those kids play. And as Eli said, it was even more wonderful to take a look at the faces of their parents and to watch those parents look at those children to see what those children were doing. This program, I genuinely believe, is going to change their lives, the lives of not just the children, but the lives of their family and the lives of our community. Now, for some of us who are, inclined to just look at things in dollars and cents and investments, if you wanted to look at that way, if you chose to do it, you certainly could. As the mayor of the city, even the size of Pittsfield, we spend over $80 million on education every year. We spend maybe $10, $15 million on remedial programs for our children. This is an enrichment program that I believe will allow us to someday improve the academics for children by having them engage in a program like this, and someday, for those who only want to take a look at the economics of things, can look at a program like this and say, it's allowing us to transfer more money from remedial programs to educational programs by helping those young children in that setting. So I'm delighted at it. You cannot wipe the grin off my face when you see them perform. So I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Eli, and thank all of you for being here. I feel like I'm in church. Nobody ever sits in the front pew. Except you two lovely ladies over there. Thank you very much. Wow. See, it's always trouble when I get to speak second. I get the final word. I'm Smitty Pignatelli. I proudly serve as a state representative for the 4th Berkshire District. I used to have part of the city of Pittsfield, and I got involved with Kids for Harmony because, like probably everybody up here, we can't say no to Carolyn Burns. But I'll echo the mayor's sentiment that when you see what these kids are going through, the smiles on the face are really very, very special. I was actually watching the Channel 13 news coverage of a couple weeks. How many people saw that? I encourage you to go find it on the web because it's so beautiful to see these young kids. And there was one kid in particular playing a string instrument. They was playing violins and cellos. Now, I played the trumpet for 12 years growing up. I could not carry a tune today. But this young boy who was interviewed, he says, I can only have time to come here 2 days a week. But I feel I'm a... For a young young kid to say that, in all seriousness, I think we have helped build his self-confidence. We've helped him learn some disciplines through music, and I think we're going to have a better young man because of it. Pittsfield, like the Berkshires, are not immune from the ills of society, and we struggle, like a lot of folks around the country and around the world. You know, some families are broken, somewhat dysfunctional, absentee parents in some cases. This music is a universal language, and it's a universal language of joy and laughter and fun. Some of you have heard me tell the story that years ago I went to New Orleans and helped a family rebuild after Hurricane Katrina. And I got to be especially fond of a young girl who was about 11 or 12 years old, and she reminded me of my daughter so much because she was about the same age at that time. And she could never say Pignatelli. So she always called me Mr. Smitty. This shy little girl who, you know, I got to be very fond of says, you know, Smitty, Mr. Smitty, I've lost my school, I've lost my church, there were hospitals that still hadn't even opened. Here we are 2 or 3 years after Katrina at that time. And she said, and I have friends that I may never, ever see again. Now picture an 11, 12-year-old girl or boy having to have that kind of conversation with an adult. So we went back, we helped rebuild this house, and I went back to visit her a couple of years later, and the first thing she wanted me to do was to go to her school that had just reopened, to go to the school concert. So some of her friends who she will never ever see again were not there, obviously, but she built new friends. And it was through the music and the concert of the school. And to see this little girl who had lost everything, 14 feet of water in these people's home, the laughter and the smiles and the bright eyes of happiness through music. And that's what Kids for Harmony is going to do for us here in the Berkshires. I can't think of a better place to have it, be it housed, than under the leadership of Carolyn Burns. She's doing some fantastic things. We need to take this across the Berkshires, across the Commonwealth, and I tell you, we're going to take it across the country. If we can lift the spirits and the personalities and the hopes and dreams of young people. Now, I'm not sure if that young boy will ever truly be a pro, but we gave him an opportunity, and I think it's going to change the course of his life. I still can't play a tune, but music gave me the discipline to really appreciate and understand. And I think if we could take this around the world, we could maybe have some peace in this world. Peace through music, and Kids for Harmony can lead that way. So I'm honored to be here. I look forward to some dialogue. I look forward to my esteemed panelists the rest of the way down. But support this organization all that we can, and let's keep it changing lives throughout the Berkshires. Thank you.
Thank you, Smitty, and thank you for Eli for moderating this, and Carolyn for your leadership is really really outstanding and inspirational. When I think of this program, Kids for Harmony, I was first introduced to this program actually when I still worked at City Hall, and I was stunned. We were in the conference room, and Carolyn and her team presented this program, and I said, and we're going to have it here in Pittsfield? Like, it's just so amazing. And I knew right away what a wonderful opportunity it was. But when I think of this program, the word I think of is accessibility. This program is accessible to families who not just might not be able to do it, would never in their lives have something like this available to them. And through the leadership of Carolyn and her team, it's not you have to apply to this program and you have to, behave so long to be able to do this. This is like, we make this available to anybody who wants to do it. Through instruments, which are expensive, by the way, which is why you're all here. Through instruction and the teamwork. Alicia is an absolute saint, by the way. The patience it takes to work with these kids. Most classes in school, when they go to regular music class, it's 43 minutes, right? During the school day, once a week. And she works 2 hours a day with these kids. And these kids sometimes are really tough. But she has figured out a way to do this, working with high school students, which is awesome, to have them be involved. And this is all about really hard work. And this is when the gentlemen over here have talked about discipline, it's through this hard work that the children are learning that discipline. But also, we've made this accessible for the families. And this has made a real impression on me. When we talk about, they've kind of gone to this new phase where they're having the casual concerts once a week. And the parents can come into these casual concerts. Not, you gotta show up at a certain time and it's only once a year. I don't know, any of you, parents of daughters and you have the once a year recital and you better not miss it, right? But once a week have these casual concerts, the parents are coming, and just through that, the parents are starting to get to know each other in a casual way, not shove it down their throat, just in a casual way. And now what has happened? They have formed their own booster club. Now, isn't that great that they have had an opportunity to do this, to be able to form a support group about a common issue, that all their kids are involved in this, but it's not us, and we've tried this many times, right? We go into the schools and we say, hey, you parents, you need to do this, show up at this time, return this form. But to be able to do it in a way that's very accessible to these parents, I find very, very impressive. So really from top to bottom, this is a very exciting program. I think we're going to see more and more great things out of these kids, but let's not forget how much real work this is. And there are people who are working hard at this every single day, and I am so very appreciative. Thank you, Eli.
It's a hard act to go behind politicians. My name is Shirley Edgerton. My name is Shirley Edgerton, and I'm the director of Youth Alive, which is a performance arts program here in Pittsfield. We've been in existence since 1995. And I'm here because I believe in what Carolyn is doing. And I understand that the arts has a profound impact on children. I understand the prevention that's involved. Like Carolyn, I have a social work background, and I understand that it's better for us to put our energy at the front end, put our funds and invest in the front end, trying to teach our children good skills, teach them discipline, than us having to spend all those dollars that the mayor was talking about, or maybe didn't mention in terms of corrections and some of the other things that we have to utilize to address kids once they become more of a challenge. So I'm here also because I think that the experience that these kids are having is just immeasurable in terms of funds. It's already been mentioned, their self-esteem. I've seen the growth that has occurred through young people who've been involved with the arts. I've seen their lives change. I've been to the schools where Youth Alive has performed and the teachers is like, is that so-and-so? It can't be so-and-so. Because in the classroom, so-and-so can't stay still. But yet they become so disciplined and so focused and so invested in what they're doing, they perform, extraordinarily, just like these kids in Harmony are doing. So it's an incredible program, and I can't even imagine, not supporting a program like this, because it's the difference in my mind between life and death for some of the kids that we deal with in our community. So I'm here to applaud Carolyn and to give her my support, and hope you guys do likewise.
I am so humbled by these remarks. I could just burst into tears, because I just need to tell you, in my career, which is now over 40 years long, this is the most wonderful work that I have ever done. And when I heard that Hillary Clinton was going to run for president when she was 69, I said, yes, I can keep going a long time and bring this all over Berkshire County and the Commonwealth. Yeah, but this is wonderful work that we're doing. As people have said, this is really, truly getting at the root causes of some of the issues that affect the families that we work with. But yet, it's getting at the root causes with a program that demands so much of their children. Our ambition is, I don't know exactly why all of you are here tonight, but I want to tell you that our ambition is in a year or so that you will be coming to hear these children play because they are so good. They are getting very, very good, and they have some wonderful role models to look up to down the road here with professional musicians, but they are going to get there. I was talking to Shirley the other day about this issue, and just what you were saying, that we hold the standards high because we know that if children are given an opportunity, that they have the potential to go very, very far. I just want to read you very briefly, because people have wondered, why is a social service agency doing a classical music program? And our values align so nicely with the El Sistema values. And I'm just going to read you the Berkshire Children and Families values. Pride fuels transformation. Every person has abilities and resources to contribute. Every child has limitless possibilities and the ability to strive for excellence. Possibilities abound when potential meets opportunity. Every child and adult grows and benefits from giving to others. Every person has the capacity to dream. Dreams coupled with opportunity drive transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. I'm Trudy Falk, the Artistic Administrator of the Boston Symphony, and I appreciate being invited here. I was really delighted to hear about the establishment of this cell, if that's the right word, of El Sistema here in Pittsfield. I'm always astonished to think back of the history of the arts in the Berkshires and the way in which the arts have been able to regenerate themselves and create new audiences, new listeners, new artists themselves. And I think this is the seeds of yet the next growth and outspurt of all of this. El Sistema is an incredible concept. It, of course, began as a social program funded by the government in Venezuela, but it's become many other things since then, and each community that has embraced it has, of course, created its own version of El Sistema, and what we're seeing here is a really quite remarkable local iteration of this. We at Tanglewood in the Boston Symphony, had our first-hand encounter with El Sistema when its star alum, Gustavo Dudamel, conducted the Boston Symphony in 2006. And the following season, with Mark Churchill's help, we hosted the Simon Bolivar Orchestra in Symphony Hall. But since that time, it's become much more than that. I don't know whether you've been following the press this week, the international music press, but about 1,400 instrumentalists and choristers from Venezuela have been at the Salzburg Festival in Austria this past week, which is perhaps one of the holiest of holies in terms of the classical musical world. And such was the impact of the young musicians, the energy which they brought, the freedom of expression, that Mr. Pereira, the director of the festival, has announced that the Salzburg Festival is moving to Caracas in 2018. I'm not quite sure how that comes about for many reasons, but as an expression of the sheer wonderment that this program can bring even to the most hardened, if that's the right word, of classical music aficionados. Music is one of the most civilizing forces in our lives, and orchestral music in particular is perhaps the highest of these, because it involves a degree of formality, a working together, a communal spirit which is unlike any of the other arts. And it's a sign of a civilized society when its leaders are able to see the value of this and support it, which everyone here has been doing. I am thrilled, of course, that the focus of El Sistema is principally on orchestras and on choruses, because that is our life as musicians here, and those of us working to bring about performances and those who are creating music for us. And so I see this as the seeds of the next generation the work that Carolyn is doing, the next generation of the great performers to my left here. People talk about the crisis in the classical musical world. A week ago, as some of you will have known, I was scrambling a little to try and find some replacement artists for this past weekend when a third of the lineup was fouled by ill health. And I can tell you, doing a snapshot of what is happening in the world by trying to find out where artists are at any particular time, just reinforces to me how much music is really going on around the world at the highest level and everywhere. To say that the music industry is in some dying death throes is so far from the truth, and I think the work of El Sistema is perhaps the greatest reassurance that the life of classical music is healthy and long-reaching. If there's a crisis, it's about how we access it, and our challenge is to find those new ways that people will access our great art form and lead them to that front. The work that is being done here is the kind of nurturing and development that will provide the open brain and heart and mind that will lead people towards the great power of great music. Thank you.
It's very nice to be here. My name is Jonathan Bass. I'm the pianist in tonight's concert with these wonderful artists to my left. And we all of us perform, all of us have a lot of experience teaching. I remember teaching out in San Jose State University out of California in the early 90s, and I was teaching music appreciation class on Monday nights for a couple of hours, and none of the students in the college classes had ever had a music class because the budget had cut music in California in 1973, whatever it was, Proposition 13 maybe rings a bell. But so I was the first one, introducing them to classics and also taking them to their first concert to the San Jose Symphony, which no longer exists. But anyway, it's such a tremendous absence in these people's lives, and they're in this country. What bothers me in the culture is that I'm always trying to persuade people how important music is, and sometimes administrators of private schools, they look at me cross-eyed because they say, well, what do you want me to do about it? We have our sports program, and they can go get music somewhere else. And so it's sort of always amazing to me that people don't really understand what music's about, what classical music's about, and it also surprises me with all the research that's been done about what music can do for children and how it helps them academically. I mean, I personally think, maybe because I'm a musician, that music is the value in itself, but it seems like we have to persuade people that it has a value beyond what, intrinsically, but that it actually helps children to grow and to do great things academically. There's been a book written called, I think this is the key, it's called Talent is Overrated. Because we usually think, well, let the talented kids study music and everybody else can do their thing, but actually it's a myth. It's a myth because what makes, also maybe you've heard about the Malcolm Gladwell book, The Outliers, right? And that's about how, you need 10,000 hours of practice to master something. And it's true in music as well. If you get somebody and you give them the right kind of training early on, who's to say that they won't? I've seen many examples of this, that you will get children who you might not think have talent, but you give them the right kind of training. And that's really key too, because what El Sistema does, what I've read, is that they find that happy, spot where children are learning. They're not overwhelmed and anxious, and they're not doing what's comfortable. Let's say they're learning to play scales on a violin, and they're kind of, just playing a violin is a big deal, it's overwhelming, but then they learn their scales, and then once they're playing their scales, they're comfortable. But maybe the teacher will say, well, let's change how we're going to play these scales. Let's do something different. Let's change the articulation. Let's change the dynamic. Now the students are really thinking and they're learning, and this is how they build the skills that the kids need. And so, you know, I just think I'm preaching to the choir here, to extend the church analogy, but I really think that music, the way it's transforming these kids' lives, and I'm just very glad that this is taking place in Pittsfield. I think that the whole country can eventually will benefit from this kind of program that you're having here in Pittsfield. So keep it going.
I was very happy to hear my friend Tony talk about the extraordinarily healthy musical life which is going on in this country today, in spite of all of the people who are talking about it either dead or seriously ill. It's not. It's expanding extraordinary multiplicity. I'd like to just talk about one aspect of this. Everybody has touched on the wonderful effect from a philosophical and sociological point of the experience that these kids have. How many people in this room have ever tried to play a string instrument? Not too many. You know that it's a very challenging thing. Just from the standpoint of basic coordination, for a youngster to pick up a string instrument and try to produce anything which is other than a thoroughly disagreeable noise is a major challenge. And the challenge for the little person who's trying to produce that nice noise is expanded greatly to the teacher. The patience which is necessary for the teacher to go through those early phases of a kid trying to produce an agreeable sound is something which would try Job. And I look at Carolyn over here, and I have to say that my admiration for the people who are doing the teaching in this program is boundless. They're wonderful. I've watched them in action, and just the simple act of coordinating enough to play the instrument, doing two things with two totally different things with your hands, and concentrating on learning to read a note, which is, for many of these kids, a whole new language. The whole act of that is so beneficial to their learning patterns. I cannot tell you how incredibly effective it is in expanding their learning skills, and of course the community experience of them being able to do something together with other kids where they're all starting from square one. Big kids, little kids, fat kids, skinny kids, kids that are athletically very good, kids that are very clumsy. No, when they start to play the violin, they're all in square one. So my boundless admiration for the teachers. I think the program is wonderful, and I'm sure that everybody here feels that way, and I know you're going to continue to support it as generously as it should be supported.
My name is Ronnie Feldman. I first want to thank my colleagues for taking part in this wonderful event, Jonathan, Joey, and Casico. When I asked them all to play, they immediately said yes, they'd love to do it, and I was thrilled. You know, many people have come up to me and thanked me for putting so much of this together. What we're doing is the easy part. We play chamber music. We love to play chamber music, and we had some really, really wonderful rehearsals today. The hard part comes from Carolyn and the advisory board that's really done an absolutely marvelous job with this, the whole El Sistema, and putting this event together, which was an incredible amount of work. I'm a cellist who conducts. I always say that I'm a cellist who conducts because I keep more friends that way. I left the Boston Symphony in 2001 after 34 years because it was time for me, and I think a lot of us feel this way, to give back. We've all been teachers throughout our lives, and I think most of us feel at some point
that it is time to give back a lot of what we've learned. Certainly, watching great colleagues like Joey in the Boston Symphony and all the conductors and major artists that have come our way through the years. It's been a great learning experience for us. Just playing with colleagues throughout the years, a great learning experience that at some point in our lives, and at this point in my life, and I think Joey's life too, you just want to give it back. I know Joey couldn't rehearse this weekend because he was working with the kids at Meadowmount. He was playing concerts with the kids at Meadowmount. That's the kinds of things that we do. And when I was rehearsing today with my colleagues, playing wonderful chamber music, I was thinking how lucky these kids are. They have a whole lifetime ahead of chamber music. We're not quite done up here, but they have a whole lifetime of playing really, really great music. And it was such a joy this morning and this afternoon to rehearse great music with wonderful colleagues. That I do envy the amount of time that they have to just play some of the most wonderful music that was ever composed. So I'm so pleased to be part of the El Sistema Advisory Board and continue to work with them to do everything I can, to work with the kids and to make events like this even more possible.